Hello, I'm Dominic Walker. Welcome to JMW's Inside Man YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel. Two guests today, Ikram Malik, who is a partner within JMW's corporate immigration team, and Tom Capper, who's a solicitor within JMW's employment law team. So Ikram, if I can ask you first of all, what is Ramadan?
Muslims around the world will typically sort of fast during the month. And that's obviously around where you are, and of course in the UK at the moment, the fasting starts from dawn till dusk, and around this time of year it can be up to around sort of 20-21 hours of fasting.
And no doubt employers will be keen to support their employees throughout the holy month. How can employers do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, as I said, I think the key thing here is to sort of understand from a start-off point is what a typical day may look like for somebody who's working. So normally, I mean, obviously during Ramadan, what you have is, and I'll sort of go back to the night part because that's important, because what you have is a late night prayer that will start. So that typically ends around sort of midnight. And then you'll have your pre-dawn meal, for which around this time of year could be anything from 1:30 till about 3 o'clock in the morning. And then, following that, you've got your normal day then. So your working day starts. And then obviously, depending on what time you finish, you've then got another prayer. So sort of when you're looking to break that fast, and as I said, around this time, it's going to be any time from 8:30 onwards till about 9:30. And then you have another prayer. So that's where you break your fast around sort of 8:30. So really, as I said, you've sort of gone into a sort of 20-hour of fasting. So typically, I think the key thing for employers really is to understand is that there may be need for flexible working. Now, we've had a lot of that around, of course, because of the pandemic anyway. But that flexible working sort of goes more into sort of, in an individual's needs rather than, of course, something else. So some people will be far more active, earlier on in the day, and then some will be productive later on in the day. For myself, I find that if I can start a lot earlier, that certainly helps me because the energy levels are quite high. So I like to sort of get, bulk of the work done early, and then maybe have that flexibility of, a bit more relaxation towards the day because the energy levels just aren't good enough. And then I think with that, I think the key thing is your performance levels. So when, as a manager, as a team leader, you're setting tasks for your, workforce, to speak to them and then see how they find it, what are sort of best days, so sort of time of the day for them to complete those tasks really. And I think the other thing is sometimes attending work events. So you have your networking events, you'll have training sessions, there may be other events that they're required to sort of attend as part of the working routine. And a lot of these events will include, food and drink. So the key thing is to sort of speak to your, employees, see if they're comfortable in doing that. And again, personally, from my perspective, I've not had a problem in attending a work event where there is food, but I have found where I did get a bit uncomfortable is attending networking events at, lunchtime or a breakfast networking event. As I find that, obviously people on the table, when they realize that you're fasting, they get a bit uncomfortable, obviously eating and drinking in front of you. And that for me is it makes me feel like that's something that I'm practicing is making other people uncomfortable. And that's why I sort of try and avoid events because I don't want others to feel uncomfortable. And the same thing at a workplace. I mean, I have absolutely, no problem with my colleagues drinking tea, coffee, eating, and doing those things around me. But typically, I think, and I think Tom might experience that this year, that when he's around me, so sometimes you feel that you don't want to do it to sort of not make other people uncomfortable. So it's good to have that chat with them. And I think the final sort of point also is accommodating sort of your holiday requests that come in. So again, because the month is not just about abstaining from food and drink, it is a sort of a spiritual sort of month. So typically, from a religious sort of point of view, there is a lot more than just abstaining from food. So people sort of, the focus tends to be on the spiritual side of things, work and other sort of preferences, the worldly things, sort of take a back step during this time. I mean, it's not to say that you will not be sort of, completing your work, but you may have days where you put in a request and then sort of want to be accommodated.
And Tom, Ikram's mentioned some of the things that employers can do. How can you and the employment law team here at JMW Solicitors help employers?
There's a few things that we could potentially help with. So it's obviously Ramadan's linked to Muslim colleagues. It's a religious belief, and that is a protected characteristic, and they'll be protected from any sort of discrimination because of practicing Ramadan. They need to be alert to the risks and know how to handle these issues sensitively. And it can be case by case. Obviously, there's different considerations. Ikram's already mentioned a few. Can you move meetings? Can you accommodate early finishes? Flexible working requests or remote working? Annual leave's a big one, and you can cause upset by unreasonably rejecting annual leave, and it could also be discriminatory. But then there's potential issues. What if there's multiple requests within a team? There's ongoing operational requirements. So how would you handle that sensitively and fairly and avoiding anything discriminatory? So how we can help it's the decision makers on the ground and the managers and the team leaders who are probably at risk of doing anything inadvertently that's discriminatory. We can deliver training sessions for them, so they're alert to the risks and what they can be doing. We can advise on individual requests, so that's the flexible working requests, annual leave requests, any other ongoing absences, and how to balance it in situations where there's a conflict between the requests and the operational requirements. And above all else, it's just basically get in touch if you think something doesn't quite sit right with you and you think it needs a bit more attention on how to safely avoid any discrimination risks and understand the needs of your employees.
Ikram, Tom, thank you so much for your insight. If you'd like to contact JMW's employment law team for more guidance, you can email insideman@jmw.co.uk or call 0161 82 81 999. Please also subscribe to the JMW Inside Man YouTube channel for the latest legal news, hints and tips. I'm Dominic Walker, JMW's Inside Man.